So we're going to talk about craft in this video. We're going to talk about Zeta craft, though, not just random extraterrestrial crafts. We always get asked about craft. What do they look like? Are they conscious? Yeah, and people always say, "What do extraterrestrial craft look like?" Or what? Yeah, everybody lumps them all into one big category. So we have had experience with craft in different ways, actually. The experiences we're going to talk about and the information that we have is about the Zeta craft. So you've seen multiple different craft, haven't you? Do you want to talk about some of them?
I've seen a cigar craft up close.
They call those Tic Tacs now.
They're called Tic Tacs. Interestingly, they're actually not very big, and they are cylindrical. That's the thing. That would have been at least 40 years ago, so if not more.
Before the word Tic Tac was even around.
There were no Tic Tacs.
Yeah, it was cigar shaped. Yep. That's the term that
they were called cigars in the past.
It's a funny old word anyway, isn't it? But 40 years ago, so that's pretty much before all this stuff was mainstream, wasn't it?
You'd never hear about this.
Yeah, and I know which one you're talking about. You saw that with three of your friends.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And the Zetas showed themselves through the side of the Tic Tac as well.
What colour was it?
It sort of looked white, but I think it may have had. It's sometimes hard to remember what a craft looks like. You think it's silver, and then you go, well, maybe it was white. But it's obviously within that range of white and silver. So.
And you describe having seen the side go clear.
Yeah.
So nothing opened; it just went clear.
Have you ever seen that glass when they apply the electrical current to it? The glass goes white.
No.
Yeah. People who would have seen that.
Okay.
And then I think when you take the current away, the glass goes back to normal. I'm pretty sure they must have had some sort of technology that was able to perform that function.
Because you didn't see anything opening or closing.
No, not at all.
But you saw the beings standing in.
Well, yeah, and they standing there for a few minutes.
Yeah.
3 to 5 minutes. I mean, this wasn't just one of those snare you see, a snare you don't. That they were standing there watching us moving, not actually breaking gaze with us either. It was a pretty interesting experience.
And the drone?
The drone was different. That was, was it only a few years ago, wasn't it?
3 years ago?
The one above.
2 or 3 years ago. That was over the back garden.
That was a rudimentary craft that had some minor controls inside it that could be moved backwards, forwards, up and down.
And we managed to get a photo of that.
And we got a photo of that.
At night.
It's, when you take a photo at night, everyone always says, to take footage, to take photos. You take a photo and then you're disappointed in the result because, these craft have field around them, and these fields
that's what's caused
managed to distort
fuzziness.
Yeah, they managed to distort. Also, you've got to wonder, if you had a camera that was able to, film at night, how much time do you have to set these processes up? Generally, you're just grabbing your iPhone or whatever you've got and taking the best photo you can at the time.
Unless you've got like cameras aimed at the sky all night long recording.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's true.
It's quite interesting. But the one over the back garden was quite it had to go after 3 days, didn't it?
Yeah,
because
it was causing too many problems.
The dogs were like constantly barking and howling, and we had so many birds just flew into the doors and the windows, like everything. It's like the animals became all disorientated.
Yeah, well, I had a cat once that used to try to sit on the wall, which was very disorientating for the cat.
Why is that? Why did the cat
they seem to lose their sense of what reality is. It's a very strange. I have heard of people that have actually had to remove their animals from their house because of extraterrestrial contact.
What's that one you've written down?
A pod.
Oh, the pod. That's
Have you ever seen the movie Arrival?
It's actually
And
one of our
I think
favorite films.
towards the end, the scientist goes up in a pod into a much larger craft. I've seen one of those.
And how long ago was that?
Many, many, many years ago.
Mm.
I also think that sometimes when people are taken on board craft, that they are telepathically receiving a signal to walk out to the craft and to step into the pods. Another thing is that those pod technologies are also used on planet and are used to move beings from one place to another.
What was the fabric of the pod like? Was it like the Tic Tac?
No, it was white, and inside it's organic. I met a person once who was telling me that they had walked on board a craft. When they walked up to the craft, there was no doorway or opening, and that a slit appeared on the side of the craft and then opened, and it was as if it was a biological entity.
Yeah.
And I've seen that myself, but it was good to hear it from
somebody else. Yeah, well, maybe we'll come back to that in a minute.
Yeah,
a large craft. What's that one all about?
The larger crafts that I've seen up close generally can carry about 20 beings or less.
And so this would be, you're thinking of what the craft landing in
Malaysia. Yeah.
Malaysia for that. Yeah.
But there were other times when craft landed and I walked onto the craft and was able to walk around the craft. And you could see that there was capacity for up to probably 20 beings to be on the craft.
And these are circular craft.
They're disc.
Like the kind of classic disc. UFO type, you'd see. And so all of these craft you've seen them with your physical eyes. This isn't in meditation or an altered state. Well, maybe you're in a very light altered state in order to be able to have seen them. Maybe in some way, I'm not sure.
I think sometimes I was in a very tired state because they seem to come at 3 o'clock in the morning for some reason, as a lot of people would know.
But all of those sightings you had, the experiences that weren't sightings, you had people with you.
Yeah.
On every single occasion.
Even to the point that when the extraterrestrials have walked around the house that I've been in, and I've had other people with me, I may have actually been asleep, and the extraterrestrials woke people up to get them to come and wake me up.
Yeah.
And the people would come and say, "Paul, there's extraterrestrials here."
Yeah.
I know that just sounds crazy.
That's the way it is.
But the people that were there that happened to, if they see this video, they'll be acknowledging it that it happened, and it didn't just happen only once. So this is the thing, why the Zetas went out of their way to make themselves known to other people probably is becoming more realistic now, because as you get older, you start to wonder about why these things have been happening, and you hear about lots of other people's contact. And I think it's good to always have as many people as you can with you in a contact situation.
Yeah, well, it's good evidence for yourself, isn't it, that you didn't make it up, or that your mind has constructed some crazy event.
Well, you can. I mean, you can. There's all the possibility in the world if you're by yourself.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Or even if you're with other people, I mean, it's still possible to have a mass sighting, but
that's true.
Once they leave physical proof on the ground, such as compressed ground.
And that's what we had at Malaysia. Yeah, circular compression and the vegetation, the growth of the vegetation is still affected now, like 10 years later.
But that's sort of, I think that's probably a documented fact with a lot of different craft landing sites, especially crop circles as well.
Yeah. And the drone that was over the yard, over the garden, we had 2 people come round in that 3-day time frame when it was there.
Yeah.
And we knew that there was some sort of energy
tether.
Yeah, like coming from the craft to the ground. And when you first stumbled into it, you nearly fell into the pool because it took you off balance. And so we asked our friends if they, one at a time, if they could. We didn't tell them what was going on. Could they go around the pool and just have a feel around for energy or whatever. And on both occasions, they both encountered this energy beam in whatever way. And nearly fell in the pool.
Interesting,
and I nearly fell in the pool as well.
Isn't it interesting that everyone lost their balance? And
yeah.
then when the craft was moved, the tether went with it.
Yeah.
And if you could stand on solid ground, but inside the tether,
it was spongy.
The ground was very spongy. I mean, not just like a little bit, but it was really spongy.
To the point you felt like you were wobbling around, like you stood on a bouncy castle or something.
Isn't there a name for that when ground, like under normal circumstances, starts to move?
An earthquake?
An earthquake, yeah.
I don't know. I've got no idea.
Probably not.
Yeah. So
I've remote viewed a craft that was quite large. There's been occasions, if you're in the right altered state with the right training, that you can remote view. This craft was massive and was powering up at the sun. It was good to see that some people had occasionally seen some sort of distortions or images and taken pictures of them. They look like big sunspots, but there are very, very large craft out there, city size, maybe quarter planet size craft as well, and civilizations.
I was going to say the beings are actually living on there.
Yeah, living on the craft.
True starfarers.
Right.
And we've just touched on that very and the next question very briefly. The next question we always get asked are these craft biological? Do they have consciousness? Do they have awareness?
Who knows really? I mean, in the end, how much consciousness each of these craft have.
The drone didn't, did it? That little one.
I would suggest that the Tic Tac didn't. But I'm just talking. The pod probably had some sort of AI technology as well. Probably the Tic Tac as well. The bigger craft definitely had consciousness.
Yeah.
Because I was able to interact with that.
Yeah.
Telepathically. And the big star craft would definitely have consciousness as well.
And we've had conversations, or I've had conversations with the Zeta that speak through you. That's me talking to them, so you might not remember, but and they have said that the craft are, some of the craft they use are biological and have consciousness, and that they're created from cellular material in order to be able to hold a level of consciousness. So that's really interesting. So what do you remember about being on board?
So many different experiences. I know one's so interesting.
And this is conscious recollection.
Yeah. Walking up towards the craft, there seemed to be some sort of a ramp going up. And as stepping into the craft no longer was a craft, it was a hallway. And I knew that was an overlay, like a screen memory narrative, because there were walls, but at the end you could see the actual craft on the inside. Maybe that's part of the craft's desire to want to soften the experience of a human stepping on board a craft.
Well, that's interesting, because that's what I saw on that other craft. You remember we were on that craft together, and we were in the end, and it was circular at the end. But remember, I said when I turned around the other way, I saw
a tube,
a hallway.
Oh, we'll be talking about that one.
You just answered my question.
So when I was halfway up this hallway, there was a being there, and I had a good discussion with the being, and then continued on. And then the matrix that I was in dissolved, and I was standing inside the craft. a good experience. It may have been that the being required the holographic environment for itself. I'm not really sure. But you and I have been on craft together, and when we've tried to compare the experience, I've been looking forward, and were you looking forward, and you were able to turn around?
I was able to turn my head round to the right, and I saw there was definitely a hallway, or more of a corridor.
There was on one craft there was a fairly large viewing portal or platform. On the left side, you could just walk up to probably 6, 7, 8 feet high. Circular window.
We did that, didn't we?
And we were looking at the planet.
It was amazing.
It was amazing.
I mean,
and the Earth isn't flat.
No, it's definitely not flat. We've had so many different experiences, and the crafts all look different on the inside as well, like you'd expect. There was one I was on, and I was the room was very circular. I got the impression it wasn't the entire craft. It was like a particular space within the craft, but the room was still circular. It had a dome roof and mist. It was absolutely full of this misty, much denser air environment. And they've said that was the compressed environment to be able to support the human physiology on board the craft.
I think humans in the past have found craft and found there's been this dome in the middle of the craft inside with like you could lay down in them.
Well, I was laying down.
And it requires a few beings to control the craft. I've seen that awake and conscious. I've also seen some of the controls. I've also seen some of the beings controlling the craft using different methods as well. Also, I'm not sure, a concave type viewing area inside a craft.
What about the glass rooms?
That's with the glass rooms that we've seen. And you look inside, and what you're seeing isn't actually real. That's from my experience, it's like you're viewing a big drive-in theatre screen or a big movie screen, and the projection on the screen is them telepathically communicating with you and showing you things that they want you to see.
Wow.
It's
a big subject.
It's amazing on craft. It really is. Yes.
And people always talk about boarding. How did you get on board? So you've walked.
I've walked on board.
Physically walked on board, fully awake.
I was awake. But I think in the past, as a child, taken on board craft, I probably wasn't walking.
No,
I would have been. They would have used a process called matter through matter. Where they dematerialize the person.
I can remember when they come, and I can remember being on board, but I don't ever recall the actual getting on board process. The closest I've got to experience that would have involved matter through matter. So I'm guessing that they would have to. That
they're using a type A screen memory.
Yeah.
Well, that's where you've got your missing time.
Yeah, I'm guessing you couldn't be. Can you be conscious through a matter?
When you're being dematerialized, no.
No, so that would make sense.
You need to be in an altered state.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. It was incredible.
There was a time when, and this is probably a bit different, but when we do sittings and the Zetas come in, sitting is when I go into trance and the Zetas come through and speak.
Yeah.
The energy in the room changes, and if there's people sitting in the room, they may feel like the chairs are on an angle, or they don't know what time
hanging
it is.
Upside down off the ceiling.
Off the roof. And one day, the Zetas asked for the lights to be turned off,
which is unusual.
And they said they're going to create a synthetic quantum environment. We'll call that an SQE. And they said to the people in the room, if you put your hand out, you're going to experience something. And the people that were in the room put their hand out, and as they did, they said they felt this pressure, this spongy type pressure, and they were told by the Zetas to push hard, and as they pushed harder, they were able to push the hand through probably about 12 inches of what seemed to be this viscous or biological fluid or material. And they were able to actually experience what it was like to feel a living craft. Yeah.
So probably everybody's wondering now, well, how was it possible to have a living craft inside a room?
No, it was a synthetic quantum environment which has the capacity for generally
anything,
a holographic technology, but also they're able to simulate consciously what it's like to have a experience. It's so you're actually having the experience.
And as the experiencer, if they don't want you to know that you are within that environment, you will have no idea that you're in there, and may never even realize you're in there. I'm thinking about that time where we were in one room and we thought the time was a certain time, and we'd actually been placed into an SQE with no realization.
We didn't even know we'd been placed into the synthetic quantum
until we came out, and suddenly
time was completely gone backwards.
It was just bizarre. So we didn't lose time; we gained time, and we must have been gone in under a minute in reality. But
it was an hour that had gone past.
It was nearly 2 hours.
2 hours.
It was 2 hours. It's a long time. And we both went into a different room, and we were like, hang on, what on earth? How is it this time? We thought we were running late for something, and we weren't. It was like it was just peculiar. And they explained to us what had happened. So
it was a good experience.
It was an amazing experience. We had no idea that, well, you just don't think about these things unless you need to. And we hadn't had any cause to need to. So, great experience. So, I guess, like, to conclude our conversation. To conclude, when we talk about craft, because of so many different races and so many different beings, and just like humans, we have different craft for different purposes. A bus to carry loads of people, a car to carry 4 people, a motorbike to carry 1 or 2 people, aeroplanes, boats, the races out there to have multiple different types of craft for multiple different reasons.
And also different races have different technology.
Absolutely.
And they've all got their own technology in the way that they move, whether they use toroidal functions on their craft to move, whether they use etheric rails, whether they dematerialise, don't dematerialise. It's really up to the race.
And then there's the whole compression information as well, which we've done another video about.
There's also some races, the interdimensional races, that have to basically de-escalate their frequency and heterodyne down.
De-ascend.
To the de-ascension process.
From whatever D to 3.
Down for their craft to actually materialise. Pretty interesting stuff.
And then there are races that have perfect advanced technological capabilities but choose not to use it.
Absolutely.
They prefer to keep well away.
Yes, there's a few.
I know how they feel.
There are a few of those races, and they isolate their technology from them.
Preferring to live with it.
From the community, which is all right. Well,
we hope this was useful.
And we'll catch you in another video. Cheers.
Thank you.